He was supposed to uphold the law. A Navy veteran, a cop, a man of honor. But somewhere along the line, that uniform became a curse. And when the system he trusted turned its back on him, he didn't just walk away. He came back with a rifle, a manifesto, and a kill list. This is the story of Christopher Dorner, the ex-LAPD officer who declared war on his own department, left a trail of death across Southern California, and forced the largest manhunt in LAPD history, all while claiming he was the real victim of injustice. And how it all ended? In a fire, a gunshot, and a nation left stunned. Welcome to Death Row Diaries. Today's case isn't just about murder, it's about revenge, corruption, honor, and a man who believed the only way to clear his name was to burn everything down with him. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let's get into it. Christopher Jordan Dorner was born on June 4, 1979, and raised in Southern California. On the surface, his early life looked normal. Stable home, decent neighborhood, good schooling. But behind closed doors, he was fighting battles most kids didn't even understand. He later recalled being the only black student in his school from 1st through 7th grade. The racism wasn't subtle, and it wasn't rare. He got into fights. He was mocked, isolated, and made to feel like an outsider in his own country. It left a mark. But it also gave him a sense of purpose. He wanted to make things better, not just for himself, but for others like him. That's when he made a decision. He would become a police officer. He believed that if good people joined the system, maybe it could change. As a teen, Dorner joined a youth program with the La Palma Police Department. He immersed himself in the law, discipline, and duty. Neighbors who knew him described a quiet, respectful young man. Not exactly the kind of kid anyone would expect to one day make national news for murder. At Cypress High School, Dorner played football and stayed out of trouble. He later enrolled at Southern Utah University, where he majored in political science and minored in psychology, a combo that hinted at how seriously he took the system. Between 1999 and 2000, he also played as a running back on the college football team. Competitive, driven, focused. But even with all that, there were signs. He was reserved, detached. He didn't have many close friends. After graduation, he married, but by 2007, his wife had filed for a divorce. They had 2 children, but their relationship didn't survive. He was a man shaped by rules, but also by wounds that never fully healed. Think you know what turned someone into a killer? Drop a comment with what you think pushed Dorner over the edge. Was it injustice or something darker? After college, Dorner's next move showed just how serious he was about service. In 2002, he was commissioned into the United States Navy Reserve. It was the perfect fit, structured, honorable, and clear-cut. Right and wrong weren't gray areas in the military, and that suited Dorner just fine. He served at Naval Air Station Fallon in Nevada, and later with Mobile Inshore Undersea Warfare Unit 113. He even deployed to Bahrain in 2006 with Coastal Riverine Group 2, a security and surveillance force. Colleagues described him as capable, professional, and a damn good shot. He earned Navy rifle and pistol ribbons, both marked expert. One story in particular tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. While training at Vance Air Force Base in Oklahoma, Dorner and a classmate found a bag filled with nearly $7,000 that belonged to a nearby Korean church. They could have kept it, but instead, they turned it over to the police. When asked why, Dorner didn't hesitate. The military stresses integrity. There was a couple $1,000s in there. If people are willing to give that to a church, it must be important to them. It wasn't a throwaway comment, it was his code. That act earned him praise from superiors, but it also revealed something deeper. Dorner didn't just follow rules, he believed in them. Which is what made the next chapter of his life, and the betrayal he believed came with it, so devastating. In 2005, Dorner joined the LAPD Police Academy, graduating in 2006. His dream was becoming a real, but almost immediately the cracks started showing. His probationary training was interrupted by military deployment, but when he returned in 2007, he was partnered with a training officer named Teresa Evans. That pairing would change everything. On July 28, 2007, Dorner and Evans responded to a call about a disturbance at the Doubletree Hotel in San Pedro. The suspect, Christopher Dorner, was a man with schizophrenia and severe dementia. The next day, Dorner filed a report alleging that Evans had kicked Dorner in the chest and face while he was handcuffed on the ground. It was a serious accusation, and it didn't go over well. The LAPD launched an internal investigation, but it wasn't just about Evans. It quickly became about Dorner himself. The review board, made up of 2 LAPD captains and a criminal defense attorney, found that there was no credible evidence Evans had assaulted Dorner. Several witnesses said they didn't see any kicks, and Dorner's own courtroom testimony was inconsistent, described by some as incoherent and non-responsive. So the department made a decision. Dorner had lied. He was fired in 2008, not for the incident itself, but for supposedly making false statements in the report. To Dorner, it was a betrayal of everything he stood for. He didn't just believe he was telling the truth, he believed the system had punished him for doing the right thing, and he wasn't going to let it go. He filed an appeal, fought it all the way to the California Court of Appeal. The court's decision? Even if they weren't sure what happened, they had to assume the LAPD's findings were correct. That was the last straw. As one witness described, Dorner stood up in court and yelled, "I told the truth! How can this happen?"
What would you do if you were punished for trying to expose a colleague? Would you fight the system or walk away? Let us know in the comments. For a while, it seemed Dorner had moved on. He stayed quiet, but inside, he was boiling. Then, in early February 2013, a post appeared on his Facebook page. It was 11,000 words long, more like a declaration than a rant. It would soon become known as the manifesto. In it, Dorner said this: "I know most of you who personally know me are in disbelief. Unfortunately, this is a necessary evil that I do not enjoy, but must partake and complete for substantial change to occur within the LAPD and reclaim my name." He claimed the LAPD hadn't changed. It had gotten worse since the days of Rodney King. He called out what he saw as corruption, racism, and retaliation. But it wasn't just words. He named over 40 individuals, mostly LAPD personnel and their families. He called them targets. His demand? A public admission from the LAPD that firing him was retaliation, nothing less. He didn't care about money. He didn't even expect to survive. "I will not be alive to see my name cleared. That's what this is about. My name." He even sent a package to CNN's Anderson Cooper, including a DVD and a bullet-riddled challenge coin from LAPD Chief William Bratton. A note attached read simply, "1 MOA." Translation? He had fired at that coin from 100 yards with a 1-inch grouping. It was a warning and a promise. This was no ordinary killer. Do you think Dorner's motives were righteous or just delusional? Comment "justice" if you think he was framed, or "monster" if you believe he crossed the line. February 3, 2013, Southern California. The first blood was spilled. Dorner's war wasn't just a declaration, it was action, and it began with the brutal slaying of Monica Kwan and her fiancé Keith Lawrence. Monica, 28, was the daughter of Randall Kwan, the very LAPD captain who had once represented Dorner in his failed appeal against the department. She was a promising basketball coach, full of life and hope. Keith, her fiancé, was a university safety officer, young, in love, and with bright futures. But none of that mattered to Dorner. To him, they weren't just people, they were symbols. Dorner tracked them to a parking garage in Irvine, where he ambushed them in cold blood. Both were shot multiple times at close range, execution style. It was targeted, personal, calculated. And that was only the beginning. By the time authorities pieced it together, Dorner had already vanished. But he left behind something chilling, a 6,000-word manifesto uploaded to Facebook. It was part confession, part diatribe, and full of rage. In it, Dorner laid out every grudge, every slight, every name. He listed LAPD officers, journalists, celebrities, people he admired and others he wanted dead. This wasn't just a rant. It was a hit list. And the terrifying part? He had nothing left to lose. If you're shocked by how this spiraled so fast, hit the like button to support the channel. We go deeper than headlines here at Death Row Diaries. Within 24 hours of the first killings, Southern California was in a full-blown state of panic. The LAPD wasn't just on alert, they were terrified. Dorner had struck at the very heart of the force. He wasn't hiding, he was hunting. He was trained, he was heavily armed, he had police and military tactics hardwired into his brain, and he knew how they'd come after him, because he was one of them. Authorities launched the largest manhunt in California history. Over 50 law enforcement agencies joined the search. Rewards totaling $1 million were offered for information leading to his capture. Officers were stationed to protect potential targets named in Dorner's manifesto. The media dubbed it a domestic insurgency. The city was on edge. Roadblocks sprang up, helicopters circled overhead, officers began stopping every Nissan Titan in the state. But paranoia seeped in fast, and mistakes followed. In Torrance, LAPD officers opened fire on a blue Toyota Tacoma, mistaking it for Dorner's truck. Inside were two women delivering newspapers, one of them 71 years old. Over 100 bullets riddled their vehicle. One was shot twice in the back, the other injured by shattered glass. It was clear the fear of Dorner had the police running scared. But Dorner? He was 2 steps ahead. He released additional parts of his manifesto while hiding in plain sight, mocking the LAPD's failures. He said he was fighting a war, and he was just getting started. February 12, 2013. After nearly 10 days of terror, Dorner's final stand began in the snowy wilderness near Big Bear Lake. It happened almost by accident. A local reported a carjacking by a man resembling Dorner. Sheriff's deputies and U.S. Marshals converged quickly, chasing him into a rural area near Seven Oaks. Dorner holed up in a vacation cabin surrounded by forest, snow, and silence. The standoff lasted hours. Gunfire erupted. A fierce exchange with deputies left one officer, Detective Jeremiah McKay, dead. Another was critically wounded. Dorner was dug in, heavily armed, and determined not to be taken alive. As the siege dragged on, law enforcement made a controversial move. They deployed pyrotechnic tear gas, known for its incendiary risks. Moments later, smoke billowed from the cabin. Flames erupted. gunshots were heard. The building was engulfed in fire. Inside, Christopher Dorner was burned alive.
His charred body was later found with a single gunshot wound to the head. Whether self-inflicted or not, no one can say for sure. Some called it suicide. Others say the fire killed him. But one thing was certain. The manhunt was over. The story? Far from it. If this story has you on edge, subscribe to Death Row Diaries. We don't just tell you what happened, we show you why it matters. The end of Dorner didn't end the chaos he left behind. In the weeks that followed, protests and debates erupted across Los Angeles. Some painted him as a monster, an unhinged killer who targeted innocent people. But others saw something more troubling. To some, Dorner was a whistleblower, exposing corruption through violence. His manifesto triggered renewed scrutiny into the LAPD's disciplinary system, its treatment of officers of color, and its long history of excessive force. Was he a villain? A vigilante? A product of a broken system? The truth is murkier than the headlines. The LAPD reopened investigations into the complaints that led to Dorner's firing, but no wrongdoing was found. The department stood by its original decision, claiming Dorner's actions had only proven their point. But many didn't buy it. Even now, online forums debate Dorner's claims. Documentaries and podcasts revisit his story with fresh eyes. Was there truth in his words, even if his methods were indefensible? And what about the victims, the lives shattered by his crusade? Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence, Officer Michael Crane, Detective Jeremiah McKay, all dead, caught in a storm they never saw coming. They didn't ask to be part of Dorner's war, but they became the symbols of its cost. What do you think? Was Dorner a deranged murderer or a desperate man ignored by a corrupt system? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. Christopher Dorner's rampage was one of the darkest chapters in modern LAPD history. A man sworn to protect and serve, turned rogue, wielding his training as a weapon. He left behind questions that still haunt the force, about power, about race, about justice, and about what happens when a man feels silenced, cornered, and unheard. But no amount of anger justifies the horror he unleashed. He chose violence, and in the end, violence consumed him. This has been another deep dive from Death Row Diaries. The stories we tell are never easy, but they matter. Because behind every headline is a truth worth uncovering. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay safe.